A sitting head of state has now put his name on this response, and there's fresh money with a real clinical mechanism behind it. If you're just joining us, international support for the Bundibugyo response has become its own lane alongside the case counts. Africa CDC has been asking for broader help with response operations, and China formalized $2 million in emergency support as the outbreak hit both DRC and Uganda. All week, we've been watching how fast partners turn solidarity language into actual resources on the ground.
This is Ebola Watch. Today, Ramaphosa leading an AU mission into DRC, 4 million euros with Bundibugyo's name on it, and 800 health workers trained in one Ugandan district. The week finally got serious. Whether it moved fast enough is the fight. Ebola response financing and partnerships isn't over. Follow us wherever you're listening, and the next chapter comes to you.
SAnews writes.
Kinshasa, DRC. President Cyril Ramaphosa will on Thursday undertake a high-level African Union (AU) solidarity visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, reaffirming Africa's collective commitment to containing the ongoing Ebola outbreak and strengthening the continent's preparedness for future public health emergencies. President Ramaphosa will visit Kinshasa in his capacity as the African Union Champion for Pandemic Preparedness, Prevention and Response, PPPR, where he is expected to hold talks with DRC President Félix Tshisekedi.
A sitting president is now the face of this response. Ramaphosa flies to Kinshasa Thursday for an AU solidarity visit, and he'll meet Tshisekedi on DRC soil.
And the geography matters. All week, coordination has run through Kampala and Addis. This is the first move that puts the political tier on Congolese ground, where the cases actually are.
So level with me, Sarah. When the technical teams get a head of state behind their mission, is that because coordination finally worked? Or because it wasn't working and they needed the muscle? That's the line I'll hold then. The response is finally starting to match the curve. Whether it got there fast enough for a family in Mungwalu, still open.
Fair. Solidarity at that level counts for something. I just want to see it land as capacity, not as a photograph in Kinshasa. Here's Europe-Africa.
The European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership 3, Global Health EDCTP3, has launched an extraordinary funding mechanism endowed with 4 million euros to strengthen surveillance, diagnosis, and treatment efforts for Ebola, in order to respond to the outbreak caused by the Bundibugyo strain currently affecting the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, and Uganda.
On the financing side, EDCTP3 has opened a 4 million euro emergency mechanism, and unlike some of the pledges we've heard this week, this one names the work: surveillance, diagnosis, and treatment for the Bundibugyo strain.
4 million euros. Kara, the continent-wide price tag on this thing was $3.6 billion. So, help me, how much of that gap does this actually close?
A small one, arithmetically, but it sits on top of $73.5 million the partnership has already put into Ebola research over the years, and it plugs into 8 projects already running. This is money with a plumbing diagram attached.
That matters here because Bundibugyo has no licensed vaccine and no approved treatment. So when they say the money funds treatment, is a patient in Ituri getting something now, or are we talking about a research timeline measured in years?
Years for a licensed therapy, realistically. The shift today is that treatment development now has money and a name on it, after a week where no approved countermeasures was just hanging there. Now someone is paying to close that gap. Nuahereza Julius, writing in Plus News.
The Ministry of Health, MOH, with support from Plan International, has trained 800 village health teams, VHTs, in Zombo district as part of efforts to strengthen Ebola surveillance, community awareness, and early reporting following Uganda's confirmation of an outbreak on May 15, 2026. The two-day training equipped community health workers with knowledge and skills on Ebola transmission, screening, personal protection, community sensitization, risk communication, coordination, and reporting of suspected signs and symptoms.
Here it is. 800 village health team workers trained in Zombo district. After a week of conference rooms and euros, this is the first story with a named location and a headcount you can actually picture.
2 days of training, run by the Ministry of Health with Plan International, tied back to the May 15th confirmation. And Dr. Okatre's instruction is almost startlingly plain. Report any fever, avoid the DRC markets.
That market line is the whole game, isn't it? He's not handing people some exotic checklist. He's saying, fever plus a trip across the border to a Congo market. That's screening, built out of local geography.
And look at where it lands in the week. Ramaphosa flying to Kinshasa is the political tier. A health worker in Zombo watching who came back from a market is the ground game. Same outbreak, very different altitude.
Right. One of these makes the wire in Addis, the other makes the difference at a road crossing. I'll take the 800 people who can spot a fever at dawn.
The phrase he used, "You're the first respondent daily." That's the surveillance system we keep talking about, made human in a community hall. Health Protection Surveillance Center writes,
On 17/5/2026, the World Health Organization, WHO, declared an Ebola outbreak in Central Africa a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC. As of 22 June 2026, the outbreak of Ebola disease caused by Bundibugyo virus has affected the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, and Uganda, with increasing concern about its spread.
This is Ireland's HPSC assessment, and there's one distinction I want listeners to hold on to. As of June 22nd, Uganda has documented no community transmission. Every case there is still epidemiologically linked back to the DRC.
So the border is holding, is what you're saying?
The named exposure risks are healthcare settings and cross-border movement, which is exactly why Ramaphosa leading an AU mission into DRC, not Uganda, tracks. You put the diplomatic weight where the transmission is actually originating.
And HPSC flags neighboring countries as high risk because of trade and travel links. Translation for the worried traveler: the risk follows the routes, especially the routes people use every day.
When officials say Uganda is
Strengthening surveillance near the DRC border, what does that actually mean on the ground? And how do you screen for Ebola without flagging every person who crosses with a headache?
It's a precise problem, and you don't solve it by symptoms alone. You layer the clinical signs with what's called epidemiological criteria: what someone feels, and where they've been or who they've touched. In the ECDC's interim case definition for this outbreak, screeners are looking for sudden onset fever, plus symptoms like severe headache, muscle pain, vomiting, diarrhea, or unexplained bleeding. But that symptom picture by itself doesn't make someone a suspected case. The person also needs a high-risk exposure, direct contact with blood or bodily fluids from a confirmed or probable case, attendance at a burial, or travel in the affected areas of DRC within the virus's incubation window. So if a traveler has a fever and no known exposure to the outbreak, they're evaluated on the clinical facts in front of the screener. They don't automatically go into the Ebola pathway. Logistically, IOM reported as of June 2nd that it's supporting health screening at Arua Airport in Uganda to bolster early detection. IOM has also warned that border closures alone can push movement underground, which makes surveillance harder, not easier. And the pressure is real. WHO figures cited in that same IOM release put the outbreak at 321 confirmed cases and 116 suspected cases. Those are separate counts, not a combined total, and they make the border screening work matter.
Uganda actually closed its border with DRC, so if official crossings are shut, how does any of that airport and border screening still function in a useful way.
That's the tension IOM is naming publicly. Uganda ordered the border closure with immediate effect in late May, but informal movement doesn't stop because a government says stop. IOM has explicitly warned that closures without a coordinated cross-border response can push people onto unmonitored routes. Screening at places like Arua Airport still matters because it catches documented movement that continues: humanitarian workers, medical staff, returning nationals, and it keeps that channel visible as surveillance data. Going forward, watch whether the DRC and Uganda health ministries can keep up the joint contact tracing coordination this outbreak needs. The WHO Director General has already declared this a public health emergency of international concern, and that brings formal obligations for both countries to share data and cooperate.
If Ebola Watch helps you stay ahead of public health risks, try Food Recall Watch. Daily FDA and USDA recalls, allergy alerts, and outbreak-linked notices. From salmonella and listeria to pet food advisories. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. What we're watching next. President Ramaphosa's Thursday talks with President Felix Tshisekedi in Kinshasa, the next diplomatic checkpoint for the AU mission. You'll find links to every story from today's briefing in the show notes. So if something caught your ear, you can dig in there. That's Ebola Watch for today. This is a Lantern podcast.